What's going on, everyone? It's Phil from Earth, Nails, and Tails, and today I'm extremely excited to present to you this new tool that I've been working on, and it's for those of you that have been struggling with planning and planting your fall garden. This tool is curated for those of us that have a first frost date or a distinct end to our growing season. And it's an amazing calculator that allows you to input your first frost date, and what it spits out is exactly when to start your seeds indoors, plant or transplant veggies outside, and when you expect to harvest them, all before your first frost date. So let's head on inside and check it out. We're gonna get right into the spreadsheet that I've created, and regardless of what zone you're in, I have formulated this spreadsheet so it's available to all of you that have first frost dates anywhere from September through November. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world or in the United States, you'll be able to find a spreadsheet that works well for you. And right here is our spreadsheet, and as you can see, it has a variety of columns that allow us to understand how we're going to plan and plant our vegetables for the best success. And when you get this calculator, it will also have a README that will tell you exactly how to use this calculator, but I'm going to show you in an interactive way what all of this is stating and providing you great examples on how to use this calculator and be successful. So we're going to start off with a zone where our first frost date is going to be between October 13th and October 19th, because this is going to give us a generalized view of how this calculator works. But I wanted to go over all of these different tables. Let's start off all the way here on the left, and you can see we have a variety of plants and herbs. These are the most common plants and herbs that I've identified that people love to grow in their gardens. And we've got columns for crops planted, number of plants, number of successions, and all of these are recommended numbers, as well as the number of plants to plant for succession and the average maturity dates. First off, we're going to start with what plants do I want to plant? What's the number of plants I want to plant? So you can see we have all of these common vegetables here, and you can go in, let's say I want to plant 3 arugula plants this fall. I want about 10 bush beans. And as I'm going through here, you can see the number of successions are automatically populated. So I have these recommended number of successions for you, which goes up to 4. And you can see that some of these areas here are grayed out, and that means it's not recommended to plant a succession for this crop. Just get them in the ground all at the same time. If there are successions, however, if you go over to the next column, you'll see that there are different dates. So for our arugula, for example, we have 3 successions. We have 3 different dates at which it's recommended to start these in the fall. And you can see back in the original column, number of plants to be planted for succession. So since it's recommended to have 3 successions of arugula, we're gonna plant 1 plant per succession at these dates, starting them indoors. So this column right here is all of the dates that would be recommended to start your crops indoors if you're planning on having a fall garden. Now, if you don't want to take that extra step of planting them indoors and getting ahead of schedule, you can reference this next column here, which will be used to determine your recommended transplanting or direct sowing or planting in the ground dates. And all of these are correlated off of one another. You're going to be dividing your successions. If you want to plant arugula, you're going to be planting them in the ground on these dates. If you're planting arugula, you're going to be starting them indoors on these dates. And if you did start your plants indoors, they should be mature enough for you to plant them into the ground or transplant them into the ground at these dates. So you can see how these columns are very efficiently working with one another for you to have the best success. And in this last column here, this is our fall approximate maturity dates. So based off the dates that we started them indoors or planted them in the ground, we're going to have an expected maturity time, which we have in this column over here, average days to maturity. And these are automatically calculated. These dates for the approximate maturity dates are automatically calculated based off of your average days to maturity. So based off of all these factors, you'll have an approximate date that you'll be actually harvesting these crops before the season is over when that first frost comes. Now, you've probably noticed the different colors throughout the spreadsheet as well. Going back to our original column, you'll see that we have an average days to maturity, and there are some numbers in blue and there's some numbers in red. So depending on a few factors, one of them is the type of crop that you're growing, there might have some frost resistance. And all of the plants that are highlighted in blue, or which cell color is blue, has some sort of frost resistance. And you'll even see this reflect over in the fall approximate days to maturity, where you have some dates that are blue. So this indicates that a frost is expected by this date. However, it should be okay because that crop does have some resistance to frost. Going to the other colors, you'll see in our average days to maturity, there is a red cell with a red number. This means that this crop does not have any frost resistance, and it is not recommended to plant this crop at all again at any point this season. So for melons, it's going to take 90 days to mature. And because this maturity date is so long, you can see all of these red bars going across. That means I'm not able to plant melons anymore if I have a first frost date of October 13th. We can go to a different date and you can see how all of the dates change. If our frost date is October 6th, you can see how much more is unavailable for planting. So since our tomatoes and our melons, they have a relatively long maturity period of 80 to 90 days, it would not be recommended to plant these crops anymore this season. Going into our other fall recommended indoor starting dates or recommended planting and transplanting dates, you can also see that there is red and green colors. If you see a date that is red, that means that date has passed and you have missed your mark for planting or transplanting those crops either indoors or outside, and it'd be best to wait to the next succession if it's available. These green highlighted cells mean that date has yet to come and you still have time to prepare or even plant your veggies for indoor starting or for direct transplanting outside. And the exact same information is applicable for your fall recommended planting or transplanting dates. If the number is red, that date has passed and you're not going to be able to plant the veggies outdoors anymore unless it has a succession that's coming up later in the future. Regardless of which spreadsheet you're using, all of the dates for your fall indoor starting dates, your fall recommended transplanting or direct sown dates, as well as your maturity dates are completely locked in unless you change one thing, and that is the average days to maturity. And I understand that not everyone is going to be growing the exact same variety. Therefore, when you get this spreadsheet, you'll have the ability to modify the average days to maturity, which will then change the approximate maturity dates for that specific crop. So for example, let's just go to carrots. And let's say I want to plant 120 carrots this fall. You know, I love those carrots. So I'm going to plant 120 carrots, and it's recommended to 4 successions, and you probably saw this number automatically generate. Number of plants per succession is 30. So if I go over to my recommended indoor starting dates, you'll see that it's not recommended to start my carrots in the fall. So I'm going to go to the next column, recommended direct sowing dates, and here are my direct sowing dates right here for October 13th. For a first frost date of October 13th, I'm going to start them July 14th to 28th, August 11th, and August 25th. Now, if we did have indoor starting dates, these columns directly coordinate with one another. So if I have a date in the first column of my recommended indoor starting date, if I were to transplant them outdoors, I would follow this column right here, that first column over here. So the dates in the first column of my recommended transplanting date mirrors or comes after the date of my first column in my recommended indoor starting date. So you can see how we have these 4 different dates, and I'm going to be planting 30 carrots at each one of these dates. Since this date has already passed, I may still want to plant 120 carrots So we can just divide those up into 3 successions and plant 40 carrots instead. But that is something that you're going to have to do manually. This is always going to provide you the best recommendation for you based off of when your season ends. And based off of these dates, we'll see that we'll have a harvest in sometime in September, October, and the last in November. And again, these cells right here that are red with blue font, that means it will be past our first frost date, but these plants have some sort of frost resistance and will be perfectly fine to harvest. In regards to the average maturity date, let's say I have a variety of carrots that is only 60 days. So I could change this to 60, and before I hit enter, let's go back over to our approximate maturity dates and hit enter, and you'll see all of those dates change, which correlates directly to the average maturity date of that specific variety of carrot. So you could see that a lot of detail has been put into this calendar in order for you to have the best success this fall. The very last thing that I added is to remind you that you've already planted a plant. So let's say we've planted all of our carrots for this season. I understand that all of these numbers here, or some of them, are still green, but let's say we've already planted our carrots this season and we know we're done. What I can do is go to the crops planted column and I can put an X there, and it will highlight the cell of carrots green, indicating to me that I've already planted all my carrots and I don't have to worry about planting anymore this season, and I can focus on all of my other crops. And remember, we have all of these spreadsheets for those of you that have a first frost date that ranges from the first week of September all the way through the last week of November, basically to the first week of December. So for all of us in that range, which makes up a large portion of us, if you have a first frost date that marks the end of your growing season, we will most likely have a calendar for you. And if you are looking for a more specific and customized version, definitely let me know in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to work with you on creating your own customized spreadsheet. And the last thing that I want to mention is that I love to use Google Calendar. I'll take all of these dates that I have for my recommended indoor starting dates and fall planting dates, and I'll take them and I'll plug them into my Google Calendar. So I know that when September 15th comes around, I know that I need to be planting my carrots out in the garden to be successful. So that way I don't have to remember all of this information or necessarily even reference this spreadsheet every time I want to plant something. I have this spreadsheet, I'll take all of the dates, I'll input it into my Google Calendar, and then Google will notify me every time I have to do something, so I know I'm always staying on schedule, and I know that I'm going to have a successful fall growing season. I hope you all really enjoy this calculator. I put a lot of time and effort into generating this, and I know it's going to be a really beneficial tool for so many of you, and I'm excited to see the success you all have out in the garden.